The beginning of my story was the day that I received a phone call at work from Robert. Robert is my ex-husband and Kirsten's previous stepdad. He had called me to tell me that Kirsten was misbehaving and needed to be disciplined. She had been punching him and hitting him, and I could hear her screaming in the background, "Tell her the truth, tell her the truth." He was saying, you know, what do you mean, what's the truth, what's the truth? And I could hear her yell that you've been sexually abusing me. And I asked him, I said, what do you mean, are the allegations that she's making true? And he said, yes.
I was scared of being judged because I had sat in silence for 4 years. It's hard to explain that I didn't want anybody to get hurt, so I thought me being hurt would be better than anybody else. The abuse started when I was in 6th grade, and I didn't say anything for a good 4 years, and that was mainly because in my mind, I didn't want my brother to lose his dad like I felt I had lost mine, and I didn't want to hurt my mom. Life with Robert was almost routine. It was to the point where I could tell when the abuse was going to happen and when he was going to try something. He would be constantly trying to get me alone when my mom was at home. Usually the abuse just happened when she was at work or when she was away, but he would start insinuating that he wanted to see me and get me alone while my mom was still there.
A child who's experienced sexual abuse needs first and foremost is safety and security. And so we're absolutely addressing that within therapy, but because we have this multidisciplinary team, we're all working together to help this family develop safety and security again. So CPS is gonna help them determine how that best looks inside their home. The police are gonna help with determining what's gonna happen to the abuser and what that process looks like. Therapy is gonna help the family to build their support system within the family and help develop skills and tools to reduce distress within themselves. So we can all come together really from our different perspectives and our different roles to build the best sense of safety and security for these families.
Moving swiftly and efficiently and working together in an efficient collaborative way is very important, because our worst nightmare is for a child to be offended on again once we've been made aware that the abuse has occurred. Having CPS and law enforcement that work together regularly, who can expeditiously address the issue. CPS can protect the child by, when appropriate, removing them from the home, and law enforcement can apprehend that offender as soon as possible. The ability to do that, working so closely with the people that we do here at the Children's Assessment Center, is very valuable.
My mom obviously knew something was wrong. She had, on multiple occasions, tried to figure out why I was so depressed, why I was so anxious all the time.
I had known that something wasn't right, but I couldn't quite put a finger on it. Sometimes she was very depressed, and sometimes she was very excited, uppity, wanted to spend a lot of time with her friends, wasn't home very much.
After I disclosed about the abuse, I was not good. I felt constantly like I wasn't safe and like I did something wrong. I felt almost naked because I had been holding this thing with me that was mine for a long time, and it was something that I wasn't supposed to let anybody else know or let anybody else see, and all of a sudden it was out there. And whether I liked it or not, everybody could see it, and I was scared of how people would react upon seeing it.
Every child that comes through this center leaves their own special mark, but there is one story that comes to mind when I'm asked. It was a little child. They had been sexually abused by a family member, and we got to the point in their treatment where they were gonna write their story, and this child started crying and stating to me, "Mom said I'm not supposed to talk about this," and they wanted him in the corner, and that was a day that I felt like a terrible person. But we took a step back in the therapeutic process, and we reminded them about all the feelings that they had already identified and all these memories and components that they had shared. And they came back, and the next week they said, "I'm ready to be an author now." And they wrote out their story, and then they drew the pictures. The next part in the process was they got to share that with their mom. And to see this child who was cowered in a corner, terrified to tell their story and crying, sit there with their story, and to say that without any fear, without any anxiety, and to know that they were a survivor, that was something that I will never forget. At the end of their narrative, they write a chapter to other children who have been impacted by sexual abuse and the advice that they would give. And this child said that they would recommend counseling because counseling makes the nightmares go away. And that was just the moment that I knew that this process, it makes a difference.
I went through therapy for about 2 years with Lori. I could tell her anything and talk to her about anything that had happened during the abuse without feeling judged or feeling like I needed to feel ashamed. In the span of those 2 years, I managed to turn something that I wanted to be a secret and stay that way forever into sharing it with almost anyone I met. I didn't have to be ashamed of it, and there was a way that I could make it my own and do good by it.
Kirsten had been experiencing the actual abuse for so long. When she disclosed, it was brand new to me. So her and I were in two very different places, mentally and emotionally. I was trying desperately to understand what happened to her, while at the same time try to figure out what my role was going to be moving forward. And now it's gotten to the point where we can remember family memories and vacations without it stinging. We can laugh about things that my ex-husband Robert did without, oh, it's taboo, we can't say his name. And I think that's a huge sign that both of us are on the road toward healing.
When a child experiences sexual abuse, just hearing their story is not enough. There's a whole path of healing that needs to take place for that child really to be whole again, for that child to really understand who they are in the world.
I've taken that, and I'm actually going to Western in the fall, and I'm going into abuse and crisis counseling. So I've pretty much taken every negative feeling that I had during the abuse and found a way to make it positive. She hopes to, when it's later on in her program, to do an internship here at the center because it's had such a positive impact on her life. And she really wants to take and replicate what she has received and be able to do the same thing to help other people.